I am so fortunate to be here with Tracy Scheppach, one of my favorite people, with whom I worked while I was at Digital. She's the EVP of SMGX, right?
Too much fun to call that work.
Too much fun to call that work.
Yeah.
Anything in Vegas, but it stays in Vegas, so
Yep.
you can't talk about it,
Yeah,
right?
nope, got it.
All right. So we're blessed to have a really great panel here today. And I would love to start, because I believe on a Monday morning, that's where you should start with celebrations. So Tracy, you actually have launched 2 campaigns which are notable and a really long time coming for you.
Yes.
So I would love for you to celebrate them and tell us a little bit about them.
Absolutely. One of the things I'm really proud of and have worked with one of my fellow panelists over the last several years to try and build an ecosystem around addressable television. So I'm happy to say we actually have 2 national platforms that are live on Dish and Direct. They're able to serve addressable ads to an individual household, 15 million. So that's a pretty impressive number when you've been through trials of sizes ranging from 8,000 to 100,000. So our first campaign went live across both platforms with Allstate. And what's really exciting is it was new television creative, new TV money. So it was a renter's insurance ad, and they had never run a renter's ad, or renter's message, or renter's money on television. But they were able to target homes that did not own a home. So it's very exciting that it was actually available on both platforms at a nice scaled level nationally. This week we launched Warby Parker. So Spark, one of the sister agencies of SMG, actually went out and pitched the Warby Parker business on the sole idea of addressable television, and won the business, and we are now running on both Dish and Direct with addressable campaign. So very exciting.
So we spoke earlier, and I know there's not sort of an EBIF or interactive component to those, and I read an interview with you, I think last week, on Ad Exchanger about the fact that you said that interactive television is dead, but participation TV is alive and thriving.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to talk about the participation aspect and how that comes together with addressable in sort of the new world of television.
Yeah. So it's been a drama-filled journey for interactive television. And, not to, kind of be sensationalistic about it, but the way that the industry has defined interactive television has really been set-top box or EBIF controlled. And I think Canoe's failure has basically taught us that that probably will not be the scaled way that a level of participation with television creative happens. So, we're starting to shift our kind of mindset to two-screen, something that a lot of people have deemed as social television, which I think has a much bigger opportunity than just social. So the ability to have a participation layer through a second screen, whether it be your tablet or your smartphone or your computer.
I mean, that's what's interesting, right? Because in the living room, it's not just a second screen. There's a third screen and a fourth screen,
Yep.
right? So fragmentation is a big challenge for advertisers, and actually getting and harnessing an approachable audience is a big challenge for second screen platforms. You're bullish on one player in particular, and I would love to hear why you're going big on second screen and how you're addressing that challenge of fragmentation for your clients.
Absolutely. So I think, it's early days in second screen, but boy, can it rush to market. So we're seeing, apps coming out of the woodworks, whether it be Vigil or Into Now or Shazam, and all of the content providers either have their own for the network. I'm sure CBS has one, and then individual shows like Desperate Housewives. So you're just seeing it come out everywhere. The amount of meetings we're having to take to be able to stay on top of what two-screen is morphing into, is quite overwhelming. But there's, one player in particular that's coming to market relatively soon here, Zeebox, that launched in the UK in November to some great success, which works across all of content, all of television content. It adds layers of social with connection to Facebook or Twitter. It also adds layers of commerce, deeper integration into things like IMDb and Wikipedia. So it's a really interesting idea where it's harnessing all these things that exist already into one app that connects with television.
So Zeebox launched in the UK with Sky, right? They had a partnership with Sky B. They took, I believe, a stake in them. The same is occurring, I don't know the specifics around the stake, but their partnership in the US and their launch is with Comcast, right? What's that triangulation, and how strategic is the operator's involvement with Zeebox and the support of that platform? Do you think will it be a critical success factor? Is it what is the tipping point for them?
Yeah, lots of rumors, and I don't think anything has been officially announced, but I think it is a smart strategy to approach the content owners. And Comcast with its NBCU content stable is kind of a likely one, and its role between operator and programmer. But I think the key here is going to be the relationship with the programmer. So if you can get a wider range of programming willing to support and integrate a content experience between the first screen and the second screen, I think the consumer is going to start to really wake up to what the opportunity is.
Right.
So I think that's probably the trick. And I haven't seen Shazam do that or Vigil do that, or into now a lot of these players are kind of going it alone and seeing if the consumer will adopt them. And their strategy is not completely thought out. But I think Zeebox is really interesting because they are approaching it, it's very content friendly, partnering with someone to have a rich experience both on the first and the second screen.
So what do you think, how does that affect the TV everywhere value proposition that has actually been a pillar for a lot of the operators to sort of, sustain and minimize the actual cord cutting behavior? It was a great article I just read an Ericsson Global report, and they didn't refer to it as cord cutting, but the numbers actually should be called cord trimming, right? Because it's really not that substantial. And one of the ways they fought that with a TV everywhere value proposition that actually is useful and is a currency that users find valuable. How does that affect it? If they're going with a third party that is partnering direct with their content providers and other third party app providers, what does that put, if we take Comcast as the example, their Xfinity application on the second screen?
Yep, good question. So we'll see how, it's so early days, right? To me, TV everywhere, and we'll see how this morphs, but the key to TV everywhere was that the television distribution providers, the Comcast of the world, had to find a way to let the consumer watch the content wherever they wanted to watch it, or you were going to have some cord shaving, cord cutting, what have you. They had to do it. So we'll see where it starts to intersect. But to me, TV everywhere so far has been about how I can access my content on any device, not how my devices work together.
And so the enabler for Zeebox is ACR, right? That's one of the great sort of new things we have from the first and second screen. Do you have any thoughts on ACR as it matures from multiple devices to when ACR is native on the actual television itself?
Sure. So, ACR is a widely available technology. One of the players that I follow is Civolution, who has licensed out the technology. So you see a lot of players using kind of that base level. Zeebox is adding on quite a bit of functionality on top of it. They're looking at things like closed captioning and scraping that information to provide these really interesting things called Z tags that are essentially looking at the relevant bits that are sitting in closed captioning. So let's say a Samsung ad appears. They can put up a tag that says Samsung. And so it's kind of lazy man search. So that's really interesting. And I think it'll be interesting to see if the people who control multiple screens, like a Samsung, will start to put ACR technology native into their apps. So if you see a smartphone or a tablet coming out of Samsung that has native functionality that makes all of the devices connect. Apple would be another likely player there as well.